Typhon is the next addition to the pantheon of high DPS meta units. Like Posey before her, she is a meta sniper that can effectively replace any sniper on your team while also being an almost direct upgrade to the unit that already exists in her branch. So let's see what makes Typhon so strong. Typhon is a besieger sniper, meaning she has a quirky attack range and she prioritizes heavy enemies first. Besiegers are there to deal big damage and help with enemies that have a high defense. This can be seen in Typhon's talents. Typhon's first talent, Sharp as Fangs, lets her ignore defense up to 50% of an enemy as long as she continuously attacks, with every attack stacking 10% defense ignore. This effect is lost if she stops attacking for longer than 8 seconds. A very good talent as long as she can focus on an enemy and it doesn't wander out of her range. However, due to her high attack and skills, most enemies don't even live long enough for Typhon to build up her full defense ignore, unless they're elite heavy enemies or bosses. Her second talent, Heavy as Sludge, makes her first attack on an enemy during skill deal 160% damage and slows them for 3 seconds. This lets Typhon's skills be more deadly than they already are, and they also provide a small amount of CC to enemies that are far away. The slow is a nice luxury for your team as a whole, and it keeps enemies within Typhon's range longer so she can keep doing damage without them escaping her range. Both of these talents, in short, just make her do more damage, so there's no need to worry about you not making use of them, since as long as Typhon is attacking, she'll be making use of both talents. Typhon's first skill, is Swift Strike Gamma. More like Swift Strike why is it here and being given to another operator. If you don't know, Swift Strike Gamma increases attack by 45% and gives 45 attack speed. This skill isn't worth using since her 2 other skills are just better, so unless you're an E0 psychopath or a skill 1 only user, I think we should just move along to her other skills. Purple Angelina's second skill, Law of the Tundra, will probably be the skill used 90% of the time. It makes Kaombi of Purple shoot 2 arrows that will prioritize separate targets, increase attack by 50%, and gives a 40% chance to stun for 1 second. On its second activation, it becomes an infinite duration skill. Since she shoots 2 arrows now, Typhon is able to make great use of her second talent by scoring the big damage consistently during waves of enemies, as well as being to slow each new one she hits. While the stun chance is only 40%, it procs often enough that Typhon becomes a unit that can slow down waves of enemies without sacrificing her tremendous damage output. Since it's an infinite duration skill, it makes Typhon also become a great AFK operator for those of you who just want to set and forget. The only real downside to this skill is waiting 50 seconds for the second activation. It's best to get her down as quickly as possible so you can activate her skills early and get the infinite duration as quickly as you can to maximize her damage. Her skill 2 is good, and it is all you will need for almost every stage in the game, and the best part of it all is you don't even have to think about how to use it correctly. Typhon's third skill, Eternal Hunt, is her boss killing skill. It immediately marks an enemy within her range. The targeting will also follow the enemy even out of her normal range. Her attack interval greatly increases. She now shoots volleys of arrows that will do 175% physical damage 5 times to the marked enemy. If there's anyone else within the marked circle, those 5 attacks will target at random. Anyone hit will be stunned for 0.4 seconds. This skill has 10 ammo and can be manually deactivated. Her multiple attacks allow her to build her defense ignored immediately if all 5 arrows hit, letting her do her max possible damage as soon as possible. While the damage is impressive on this skill, it's a bit funky to use. If anyone else walks into the marked range, her TPS will go down since the targeting becomes random with multiple enemies. And once she takes down the enemy, the targeting field will be left on its death spot if she has any ammo left over. So if you killed the enemy somewhere inconvenient, you'll have to reset her skill. The need to reset the targeting position makes Typhon's skill 3 not all that convenient to use unless you want to make a choke point somewhere, where the ridiculous damage of her skill will be wasted on mob enemies. You can do some funny shenanigans by setting her skill 3 in front of a red box and watch Typhon delete anything that walks out. Most mobs can't survive her S3, so you are losing DPS efficiency. Another random use case could be using it to target big groups and use the random targeting to your benefit. But that's what makes her S2 used for 9% of stages. The damage on S3 is overkill for everything except bosses. Her S2 does all the jobs S3 can do, but without having to plan where you want to keep her targeting. The only upside S3 has is its pseudo-global range, since she follows the marked target even out of her normal range. This works well for bosses since they path all over the stage, and it is especially nice for bosses who are unblockable. It is a nice boss killing skill that will let you brute force most dangerous enemies from a safe distance without having to worry about her getting destroyed mid-skill. So yeah, Typhon good. Typhon in terms of creative uses only really falls on her S3, and it deals so much damage they might as well just save it for bosses. Her whole design is around damage, making her super easy to use. She's very much an activate Moinar skill since all you do is place her and watch her do big damage with the click of a button. For those of you that are Rosa fans and wonder if she is still a usable operator, well of course. Just like Posey vs Schwartz before them, Typhon vs Rosa is a similar story, but not as lopsided. Typhon overall is a better operator for just about every scenario. Typhon is the unit you bring when facing harder content, but Rosa is no slouch. In terms of normal content, Rosa is completely serviceable. Rosa still has her S3 with actual CC with the bind and on max mod. Rosa deletes heavy enemies into non-existence. You could just bring both and explode anything with weight 3 or higher into nothingness. Typhon is a strong character that will make your life much easier. She's also extremely easy to use and even caters to the AFK Knights players among us. Boring, but with some of the harder content that is coming in the next few months, she will make your headache much easier to handle. I'm looking at you, Design of Strife. I will have my revenge. In terms of mastery priority, Typhon is an M6 candidate. It goes S2 first, as I have said multiple times in this video. It is her best skill and the most general. It takes no real thought to use, and it will be enough for almost every stage. S3 is still a skill worth mastering since it does a funny amount of damage and it can melt high defense bosses. It only comes second since well there are other boss killers you can bring onto your team to fill that role. So again, Typhon good.